Next, we'll remove the radiator. On the Deluxe and Custom models, which this radiator is from, we remove 2 screws at the bottom of the radiator grill. Remove the lower trim and the plastic grill. And now we can reach the drain plug. After placing an appropriate container under the radiator. And loosening the radiator cap will let it flow unrestricted. Next, we disconnect the overflow hose from the top of the radiator. Loosen the upper and lower hose clamps on the radiator intake and output. The radiator is held by 3 rubber mounts with dome-topped bolts. Now we need to free the top and bottom hoses. They can put up a little bit of a fight sometimes. Drain the rest of the coolant. And there's the radiator. Behind the radiator and cooling fan is the retaining bolt for the tachometer cable. To disconnect the clutch cable from the engine, we need to create some slack by loosening it all the way at the handlebar. And then we disconnect it from the clutch lever. It helps to use an adjustable wrench on the lever to create the slack that's needed here. Now we disconnect the temperature sensor wire and the oil pressure gauge right here behind the air dam. Disconnect the pink ignition wire to the right side coil. Remove the right side spark plug cap. Remove the 3 engine hanger bolts on the top hanger. And flip this bracket out of the way. While it's possible to remove the entire exhaust system as a unit, I found it's much easier to separate the mufflers from the exhaust collector while it's still clamped into the bike. Before removing the headers, I need to remove these Honda line engine guards because they interfere with the removal of this clamp. The rear of this engine guard is retained by the upper rear engine bolt, engine mounting bolt, which we need to remove anyway. I'm going to restore this engine hanger bolt because we're going to keep the engine hangers with the engine when it's removed. Having removed the engine guards, we'll now remove the headers by loosening this clamp. Completely loosen the clamp at the front of the exhaust collector. It's important that this clamp is completely free so that it doesn't bind the pipe. Next, we remove the exhaust collector, sometimes called the H-box. There's a nut and bolt at the back of the engine and a bolt on either side right in front of the center stand. To reach the bolt on the right-hand side, we need to depress the brake pedal and reach over it with an extension. The left side is a lot easier. We'll need to remove this chrome heat shield in order to get the collector past the brake pedal. Now depress the brake pedal again and pull out the collector. Next, we disconnect the stator connectors. Because I'm using this aftermarket Ignitec unit, I only have two. My third is capped off. I also disconnect the neutral switch wire next to the air filter. And thread this cable under the frame and off of the airbox and clear. Then we need to disconnect the starter solenoid from the starter cable. To disconnect the drive shaft, we pry the rubber boot off of the back of the engine. And we may need to rotate the back wheel to expose the shaft retaining bolt. Remove the bolt completely. And slide the shaft toward the rear. Position the trolley jack next to the front wheel and raise it up onto the engine. I like to use a piece of 1x6 to spread the load, and it's important to be in at a tight angle because we need to roll the engine forward as we remove it from the frame. Now is a good time to do a thorough check and make sure that all the wires and hoses are disconnected. We don't want something hanging up when we're removing the engine from the frame. Next, we'll remove the lower engine mounting bolt at the rear. This is a single long bolt and a nut. And then the upper engine hanger bolt. We may need to use a hammer and possibly a pin punch to get these bolts started coming out. Once the bolts are out, the engine is completely supported on the jack. Now, we'll carefully lower the engine. Again, checking for anything that may be still connected.